so long he may as well have frequent flyer miles. Ward will try to rift walk away and get shut down. Rainover is out. It's a double for Reckless. He wants to run down more. Def, his brother in arms, will be his dead man in arms. And Fnatic will advance to the semi-finals.
The dust is settling here after day 3 of the quarterfinals, but the euphoria is rising because we have 2 European teams in the semifinals. And don't worry, there won't be too much euphoria because we have two people to counter it. Jatt and especially MonteCristo looking ahead.
That's right. You know, we can enjoy the euphoria for now before it turns into the eulogy. We got 2 teams. Europe can be proud getting 2 teams into the semis. But the road's going to end there.
All right, but let's start by talking. I wanted to get it out of the way. Get it out of the way.
Please insult Europe. I really need it for the flow of this show.
It's fine, because now we can talk about EDG versus Fnatic. Before that, a lot of people said Fnatic was slightly the favorite. In my mind, it was quite equal from what we've seen, the ups and downs from both teams. But then that first game happened, Monty.
Yeah, it was generally hard to predict coming in because we didn't know if EDG would make large improvements after the group stages, but it turns out they didn't really change that much after the group stages, outside of changing the person who they didn't have the right strategy to protect in the top lane, and I felt like Fnatic did adapt pretty well.
I thought there were some improvements from EDG in terms of how they played around their top laner. It did look slightly better, but certainly not better enough, right? And that was the big key coming in. And I had predicted in my World's Pick'em, I picked Fnatic to win this match because I thought EDG had so many problems that I just was doubting that they could actually fix them all. I thought it would be closer than what we saw, that's for sure, but was a little bit of an interesting situation. I agree, it was difficult to predict, but I took what I saw as the safe side.
Yeah, I think I was talking with Doa in the back, and I was like, EDG has really bad stats coming into the group stage. He's like, well, yeah, but how bad could their stats really be? And I was like, well, they were down 6,000 gold to the Bangkok Titans. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
you pulled the Bangkok Titans card.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that card. And it turned out to be true.
So maybe the one thing from EDG that I thought that they would have more of an edge in is the pick and ban phase in all the games. How much do you think the rest of the series was influenced by the experiment of game 1? And then, Monty, that pawn on Kassadin, you love to see it.
I hate that pick. And coming in, I have said repeatedly about EDG, no one is punishing the Kassadin use properly. They keep playing it. It has no wave clear. It takes too long to scale. Clearlove usually just camps pawn's lane, tries to get him a couple kills early to get over that hump. But we saw the wave clear against Fnatic was vastly superior. They played the pressure a lot better, got those turrets. And Kassadin really was never even relevant. I didn't like it when SKT played. Well, it was okay against SKT because there was no wave clear on the other side. I still don't like it. Still don't like it. But in these games, I thought it was atrocious.
Yeah, I think there's a situation in which Kassadin works. Generally not the situation. Like, Azir is a good pick to pick Kassadin into in general. Yes. And if you're pairing it with Sivir, that's also a decent choice. But the situation didn't merit it because I feel like Kassadin generally only works if you're consistently winning the early game, and they were consistently losing the early game. You need to have pressure in your other lanes to allow Kassadin to capitalize on it. And in that sense, it's almost like a cherry on top of an already winning team composition, which is, I think, why we don't see it that often, because it only works in those situations.
And I was very much looking forward to that matchup too, Pawn versus Febiven, whatever different things he could pull out. But Febiven proving once again that he is really, really blossoming, so to say, as a player throughout this big tournament.
Absolutely. I had my eyes on him coming in. I thought he played very well at MSI, and he's only gotten better since then, further expanded his champion pool. And he's just been wonderful to watch, and he was great again today, really making plays on a variety of different picks.
Yeah, specifically the thing I like most about Febiven is he started his foray into League of Legends just playing Ribbon, and then he was the assassin player. And then throughout all of Fnatic's undefeated run, he was playing long-range, high-damage mages like Victor and Azir, and now he's back on Assassin. So he's really showing the full range of champions is what you need to be an elite mid laner on the world stage.
Yeah, definitely. But that maybe finally about EDG, they're out of the tournament. That means there's no more representative out of the LPL, by the way, in the entire tournament. Maybe for EDG specifically, what did they lose between MSNA and now? Did all the roster changes and all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes come to cost them?
There are so many different theories, I feel like, for what happened. Like, we could almost expand it, like what happened to China in general, because EDG was supposed to be by far the best team in China. I think part of it was there was so much disruption at the very start of the year, and China had a lot of really good players before anyone had really worked out like strong infrastructure or strong strategy. teams like SKT and teams in general in the LCK had the infrastructure in place and scaled up to that. And I think Fnatic actually kind of exists in that realm of having incredibly strong coaching and infrastructure, so they've been able to outscale EDG, who I think showed, along with the rest of the LPL, throughout all of the month that they had to prepare, they did not have good scrim practices and just completely misread preparation.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing coming in, is the misread from EDG. Now, EDG has a very robust coaching staff. Aaron is obviously one of the legendary coaches in this scene, and he's got guys like Reaper, very smart guys, former players, helping him with this. But something about it didn't click. Sometimes this happens. You misread the meta coming in. Look at TSM at MSI. We all expected them to do much better than they did. They had very bad picks for that tournament. Same thing with EDG here. They're not playing around their top laner properly. And the question is, too, did they even have the tools to do this? They tried to bring in Amazing J halfway through this year. He wasn't proven to really be a good force in this meta. And Koro, when they won MSI, got through a season playing pretty much by himself in that top side on tanks. So they may not have even had the tools in place in terms of players to actually make a deep run at this event.
It's super hard to say. Like, Amazing J, coming into Worlds, we were all super hyped about Amazing J.
The meta fits him.
He was the energy pacemaker, all-star top laner that could play carries. We thought, Monty's laughing because energy pacemaker was like a 12th place LPL team, but he was the only good player on that team. J. Okay, I was hot on Amazing J coming into this.
Yeah.
Monty is never surprised.
No. When anything happens.
No, I was surprised by LGD at EDG. I was very surprised by China. I was not surprised by Amazing J.
Well, anyway, to maybe wrap up this game, we got to look at Fnatic as well. Reckless did say it here in the interview. I mean, we could take the whole thing. When CLG said that, it didn't turn out so well. But I do like their confidence is growing by the performances that they're putting down. The question is, how high is that ceiling, knowing that they are in the hardest part of the bracket to make it to the finals if we look at the opponents that they will be facing?
Yeah. Are you talking about Fnatic right now?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this will be a big test. Will they be able to beat the second or third best Korean team? Because I think it's very clear that SK Telecom is far above the rest of the teams in Korea, and KT Rolster and Crew Tigers are teams that drop games in the group stages. I think that, to me, is such a fascinating semifinal, no matter who gets through between KT Rolster.
Yeah, and my question about Fnatic is, in that second week when they turned it on after that very lackluster first week of group stages from Fnatic, what happens when the Kennen is banned out? We saw them play a bit of a messy game against AHQ to end out the group stages, and they just didn't look at that same level that we saw. I also think that even though Fnatic played very well today, I liked their draft, EDG dug themselves into a massive hole in the pick and ban and then didn't do anything all those games. So I don't even feel I have a very good gauge on how strong Fnatic is right now, because EDG was playing an entirely different meta to what KT and KU are going to bring against them.
Yeah, one thing about Fnatic is they're sticking to the things that work best for them throughout the regular season. Typically, they've found champions for Huni to carry on. He hasn't had success really on Gnar and maybe even much on Darius, because even though Darius has the pentakill potential, he's more of a tanky top laner, and Huni really needs to be on a more mobile assassin-type player, and they need to win the early games really, really hard in order for that strategy to work with the triple threat.
And that's going to be hard, because coming into the actual bracket stage here, if we look at the first 15 minutes for both KU and KT, KU has 3.2 times as many kills as deaths in the first 15 minutes. KT has 2.25 as many times kills as deaths in the first 15 minutes. So these are teams coming in that are the two top leaders in that category. They're going head to head, and Fnatic's going to have to face them. And Huni, if he's the key, Smeb and Someday are tough opponents.
They are tough opponents. I will say, though, KU also lost twice to the Flash Wolves, who looked nothing but impressive in the very first game.
KT lost to OG?
KT lost split games with OG, but yeah, they lost to OG. So I think there's lots of vulnerabilities within both KT and the KU Tigers.
So let's talk a bit more about that matchup. You guys will be casting it actually tomorrow as well. You, of course, are the resident LCK expert. What do you make of this matchup this time around in this stage?
I don't know how this is going to go. I think KT's going to win, but it was so close the last time these two teams played a best-of-5. Certainly we're many patches removed from that at this stage, but KU is a team that can be very surprising.
Yeah.
They will have something wacky to play in this best-of-5, almost 100%, and that may actually shape the meta for the rest of the tournament, knowing how KU's meta moves have really rippled out into not only Korea, but the world before. So if they figured out something, could be very interesting. KT, they've shown a little bit of weakness, I think, against Origin, but Nagne had a bad first week. Nagne looked much better.
Yeah.
To me, Kuro is overperforming this tournament. Nagne is underperforming. We'll see how they sort of level out tomorrow, because that could be a big factor.
Yeah, to me, KT has probably the strongest pick and ban phase that I've seen so far. And based on the way their pick and ban phase goes in the past, of pretty much always adapting to the meta very quickly and picking those champions, kind of regardless of if the players can play them or not. The longer they go into a tournament, I think the stronger that becomes, because they will become more familiar with the meta that is being handed to them. And then I also look at Kuro on the other side, who is this, he's like an enigma to me, because he was the first person to play Victor, really, and now it's common stance. But he's also was a really bad Azir player during the regular season.
Yep.
A terrible Yasuo at I Am Katowice.
Yep.
But he's this workhorse who just puts time into these champions and will eventually learn them. And at the time, I think he's actually strong on all the picks he needs to be strong on, unless something comes and really surprises him. So I think he's got a pretty good chance against Nagne, who's been underperforming.
And we have, he's still, speaking of that Yasuo, his Yasuo improved dramatically to where it was a major threat in Korea later on. And became good. And these are two teams that both really love to use Ashe, who both have used Malphite. We've got two top lane Riven pentakill players from this past season. It's a really fun matchup to think about.
Yeah, and think about Peekaboo and Score on KT, we're very impressed with. Will they have the Tahm Kench on their side? Will we see that? How strong of a factor will that be?
Will they make it into the enemy jungle? And then the game is over.
We'll see.
I think that's a little overblown. Sometimes they have very good vision control when they can get invades on, but so much of that comes down to the early game where KOO has either been running over CLG, which is, I think, the main reason their gold difference is so high in those 10 to 15 minutes. Like, KOO's gold difference at 10 minutes on average is like 1,100. And then at 15 minutes, only 5 minutes later, it's like 3,500.
Insane.
What happened in those 5 minutes? CLG
all the gold.
is basically what happened, where they had like 6K gold plus in those things. So.
Well, even in the games against the Flash Wolves, they were doing very well early. And that's kind of the big mystery to me about the KOO Tigers is how they lost those games to the Flash Wolves, because they were in such good control of the tempo. And then the shot calling, which is one of their strengths traditionally, sort of fell apart. We saw Smeb doing very wacky teleporting gauges with a depleted Gnar bar and really sloppy team fighting.
Yeah, I remember specifically because I cast the Flash Wolves game, so I was trying to figure out like exactly how they went against the KOO Tigers. And a lot of the changes were just either Gorilla making a really strange play, like specifically in the game where LeBlanc got crazy fed. It was because he caught a Kennen, he got Kalista ulted. He's like, yeah, I'll go back.
Yeah.
And he just died. And then later the Kalista died to the LeBlanc, and at that point, Maple just took over.
Well, we'll see tomorrow. I feel like it has high potential of going all the way to 5 games, but hey, that's what we said today as well. So we will see.
One of these days.
One of these days it'll happen. We'll see what happens. Well, that's all from us here from London, and our third quarterfinal, our fourth is tomorrow. Same time, same place. See you then.
Crowned 2 semi-finalists already, and today we find the third.
Corn's in so much trouble. Yellowstar needs to hit his combo. Flashes for the knock-up hit, but Paul backwards. Mango saves him. The knock-up finds 2. The double finds 4. And the maelstrom lands Edward Gaming. Did you ask for a more interesting way to start the quarterfinals? It's a messy fight so far. 2 for 2. And it's Jungler on mid-lane action.
I think I remember. Yeah, the Gragas threw the ult, and Bora flew like into the wall on the other side of the pit, and we were all going super ham.
So Bora did nothing last team fight, right?
I had no CD as well.
Big AoE. Mako's been tagged, and a quiet taste will not even be needed. Get excited with Reckless. Fnatic crush Edward Gaming. Flash comes up from bailout, but Reckless manages to get away. Super Mega Death Rocket gets a kill, gets a reset, gets Reckless excited, but it may not be enough. The apprehend pulls Reckless backwards, and EDG will not go down without a fight. It's a double for Reckless. He wants to run down more. Def, his brother in arms, will be his dead man in arms. And Fnatic will advance to the semi-finals in the World Championships.